Hey, everybody, what is up? Dan here with the Brofessional Development Podcast. Welcome back. Today, we are interviewing our first guest, Emily Frisella. And before we jump in, I just want to remind you guys, if you're liking the content that we're bringing, if we're hopefully providing value to you guys, I mean, I know we have fun while we do this podcast, but we want to make sure that people listening are enjoying the content. If you could just subscribe, share, tell somebody about it for us, we'd really appreciate that. Diving into Emily. Emily is an amazing entrepreneur. She's based out of St. Louis, Missouri. She opened her first business at the age of 20. She sold that, and ever since, she's really dove into the entrepreneurial community. She is the creator of Fit Home and Health. She's the co-host of Food and Session Podcast, founder of Women in Business Workshop, COO of 24/7 Media, digital course creator, and business coach. And she's also written a couple of cookbooks as well. So she's done a lot of shit, a lot of cool stuff. And I hope you guys enjoy listening to this interview. We'll get this kicked off right now.
Hey guys, so Matt here, and as always, I'm with Brad and Dan. What's up, guys?
What's up?
How's it going?
So Bobby and Colin are actually out today, but we do have on a very special guest, and that's Emily Frisella. Emily, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Good.
You guys doing good?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Everybody good?
Yeah, we're super excited to have you
I don't
on.
want to be
yeah.
a rude ass. Wait, can I curse on here?
Yes, you can.
yeah,
100%.
Okay, so I
yeah.
don't want to be a rude
Fuck yeah.
ass and only ask one person how they're doing.
Nah, you're good.
Fuck no, that is so inappropriate. Yeah. So Emily, thanks again for coming on. Today we're obviously going to talk a little bit about professional development, but I guess the first thing we want to jump into is Paper and Planco. So you just kind of started that and launched that. Talk about what that is and why you're super excited about it.
Yeah, so I just started it. It just launched October 1st. And I had been coming out with planners for my previous company, another company that I have, the for Fit Home and Health. And I just love the paper, the planning. Like I've always been like an office supply junkie my entire life. I've always loved just organization, ways to be efficient, more productive, and not just busy. And Andy and I were talking one day, and we're like, man, we just had like a whole company based upon the papers and planning. And we're like, and then it's one of the things like, what are you going to name it? We're like, Paper and Planco. It's just so easy. It's clear, concise, and you know exactly what you're getting. And so I got to work on that. And it was actually several months in the making, probably like most of the year actually, until this actually launched. A lot of people think you just start a company and you just hit the switch and it's ready to go. But
Right.
Anybody that's followed me for any length of time, they saw like a build out of a studio here at our house. And that studio was not only for the podcast, but it's actually our HQ for the office space. Then we have a warehouse for all the actual inventory of the goods and where we ship out of and everything like that. So just started that. My sister came to work for me. She's worked in law for 16 years and I hired her. And so she came to work for me, left her career there. So super excited to have her because I know she's exactly like me. She's very type A, organized, likes it. So I knew she could handle the shit and keep it all going. So got a small staff, about 4 right now, and then looking forward to keep growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And so Paper and Planco sounds super exciting, and it sounds like you're pretty pumped about it. We realize that that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg as far as your successes go, as far as your businesses go, and everything that you've done. So where would you say that drive and that ambition stems from?
My dad. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My entire life, my dad's been an entrepreneur. He owned trucking firms and brokerage companies. So I always saw that entrepreneur spirit, and he was never the entrepreneur that plays golf at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. It was like, you're up at the crack of dawn. Cause I grew up on a farm too. So, we raised Angus cattle, had row crops. So he'd get up and farm in the morning. He would drive an hour and 20 minutes to downtown St. Louis to his office. He'd work there, drive another hour and 20 minutes back home. My mom would have dinner on the table. He would eat, go back to the farm, feed the cows, count the cattle for the day, and then go to bed and do it again. So I knew that there was never any sort of I hate the word balance. Everybody's achieving this balance, which is something that I just don't ever believe exists. I just always say it's a blend and a bleed. People always ask about it in entrepreneurs in a relationship. Well, no, there's not a 5 o'clock, we're cutting it off and we're not going to talk about it again until 8.
True.
I cook dinner, we have dinner and then chilling on the couch, but then I'm answering emails or doing research or reading an article. It never really ends. So that's why I don't like that there's this firm balance there. But to see my dad do that, I know what to expect. I knew what was going on. That's why, I started working when I was 14 and I worked a couple jobs because I wanted to save enough money to start a company. And when I was 20, I bought my first brick and mortar building and launched my first real company then at 20 because I wanted to be like my dad. Like I saw that my whole life.
Yeah, and I think in the entrepreneurial world, obviously, hard work is something that's important to everybody. Speaking of which, Brad actually pulled up a quote that you had on Instagram, right, Brad?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for coming on, and I totally connect with you on your entrepreneurial spirit. I have the same exact situation for myself. My dad was,
That's awesome.
He was gone in the morning, and I was asleep by the time he got home at night. So I know exactly where you're coming from in that position. Yeah. But something that I found super interesting, and kind of where we want to go with this on the podcast, is you made a post in July that said that hard work knows no gender, and your work equals your results in respect. So do you feel like being a woman has made it more difficult for you? And how did you overcome that? Because we feel like there's times where women think that because they're a woman, they can't succeed like a male could. So that's kind of what we wanted to get out of this, I guess you could say.
I think that's like a societal bullshit of what people want to tell you. So if you're, if you can't make it as much, you've always got that like as a plan B card, like a card you can pull that's going to make it like, well, it's okay. I'm having a harder time because of this. Truthfully, I tell people sometimes, like, I don't care what's between your legs. You just got to work hard, you know?
So, we were hoping you were going to answer that way.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's the thing.
So it's just there's not any I'm sorry, but it's not everything that like I've ever had to like overcome, because I just feel like if I just work as hard as I can and prove that I'm as good or if not better, then I'm going to be seen as this like, a rising star within a company or, along those lines. Like, so I don't feel like there's anything that's, I'm a woman, I'm not going to be able to do it. Like you actually have more of an advantage actually, because you stand out more, especially working I worked in, 2 all male dominated industries. There was maybe 2 other women there in the office, like a receptionist and a sales girl. But like I stood out more because people weren't expecting to see a woman in that, in the workplace in these certain fields. And so people would always remember me. They'd call me. They're like, no, call the girl at this company, because there wasn't that many of us there.
Yeah.
And then I was actually way more successful that way because I was a girl, but it's like I was more detail oriented. I'd follow up. It was like, I just served them in a good way where they wanted to do business with me. So I was more successful than a lot of the men there because of the way I handled the business.
And that's very cool. And that's how we were hoping you were going to answer, because we do feel like, Dan has an example that he kind of wants to talk about, and I'll let him get into that. And just, it's good to see. I know you have your women in business workshop that you do, and I'm hoping that that's probably the same values you instill in all your girls that come in. Oh, it totally is.
Like our thing is glitter doesn't pay the bills. Like that's our whole thing is like it's like 60. We only do it in 60 women meetup, so we keep it nice and small. But they're all just like very more like masculine energy, and we're like we all just want to like dominate and just like crush at whatever we're doing. So it's like I started because I was so sick of all the frou-frou bullshit, like unicorn stuff, like get yourself a fuzzy pen and a glittery notebook and you're going to succeed. Like I just hate all that. Put your hair in a top knot and drink your coffee and own it, boss. I fucking hate the boss girl, boss babe, boss bitch. Like,
I love the hashtag win over woo woo.
And that is an incredible mentality to have. And honestly, it's like whether you didn't grow up with money or it's race, gender, ethnicity, it's like adversity or like the obstacle is the way. Right? Like usually if you're running through adversity, the fact that you're going to have to work through that is going to be your biggest advantage that you could possibly have.
Huge. Yeah. Yep. And people don't see it like that. That's something in hindsight, you have to be out of it to be able to look back and reflect on it, to realize that is what actually sets you apart. Because when you're in the thick of it, you're like, this sucks. I want out of it. I don't want to do it. And that's when people quit. It's like, you just got to get far enough to be able to look back and be like, okay, this is a lesson that I learned and this is what my takeaway is. And I'll be more successful next time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For sure. So, and all that's good stuff. One question I have, and so I met a lot of females that are amazing. They have a ton of potential. And it was kind of eye-opening. That's part of the reason why we wanted to do this podcast, where they've been told by male counterparts some things that, I would never say to a female, and I didn't realize existed. So I do think there are some challenges.
You mean like sexually harassed?
Well, like, hey, I took this meeting because you're hot, right? Or
okay.
Or they'd be in a meeting, they'd vent some frustrations, and the manager might say, hey, you're just being emotional, where a male counterpart might vent the same frustrations and be taken more seriously, right? So, so I'm trying to, how would you define a strong female, and getting over those barriers? To me, I'm just curious how you would define a strong female or independent female.
Yeah. No, and what you're saying, that stuff, it does happen. I remember when I first, my first cookbook came out, I was on a radio show here locally. And the guy said, well, how do you figure out these recipes taste good? And I said, well, my husband tastes them. And he's like, well, he's not going to tell you if they're good. And I go, yeah. I go, you clearly don't know who my husband is. He'll tell me if they're good or not. And he goes, well, guys don't care. You can just cook in a thong and they'd eat it. Like, there's shit like that.
Yeah.
So like for me, I'm very sarcastic and I'm quick-witted. So I will just say something back to them, honestly, just to embarrass the fuck out of them. And then they never bother me again. So like, it's just really just speaking up for yourself and not taking it. And even, you don't have to be rude about it, but you can be like, do you really think that was necessary? And the thing is, it's getting past that mental block of like, because guys are going to think you're a bitch if you call back at them like that. When they're being inappropriate, they're going to be like, God, she's a fucking bitch, or, or whatever it is. That's not the truth. You're just standing up for yourself. So you have to have like the confidence internally to know that you're not a bitch. You're standing up for yourself. You're letting people know what your boundaries are, because if you don't do that, you're making it harder for yourself. And I think that's why I haven't had issues with this in the future, or like in the past, or anything that I've come to in the most recent time frame, is because I don't let people talk down to me like that or pull that, because they do it one time. It's never, ever going to happen again. But word spreads and they're like, oh dude, she's not going to take your shit, blah, blah. Right. So nobody tries anything. You know what I mean? So it's just standing your ground and being confident in who you are, to know that it's not you, it's that person that was, made the snide remark.
Now, is that something that, I mean, obviously you're one of the elite, the biggest female entrepreneurs in St. Louis. Is that something that can be learned, or is that something that is?
You're out there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that in St. Louis has the most female entrepreneurs in the entire country, and we value you to be one of the top ones in St. Louis.
I appreciate that, man.
But is that something that you think can be learned, or is that something that
absolutely?
So,
because I mean, when I was in my first business, I started when it was 3 months after I turned 20. So I was just super young. And, at first you don't want to speak up because you're afraid, oh my gosh, I'll lose a customer if I say something, or, and I mean, you're 20 years old. You don't know that much.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so and I think anybody in the evolution of their entrepreneur journey, I was 20 years old, but you could be 40 years old and that be your first encounter. You don't want to lose a customer. I deal with some of my coaching clients and they're like, well, I don't know what to say. I don't want to lose them as a client. I was like, no, but if you do this, then what happens is the pushback is going to get further and further. You're going to allow that. And it's like those, like the memes and quotes and all stuff. Like you're training people how to treat you.
Yes.
And so if it's not, the customer is not always right, but you got to make them feel that they're right. So it's just being able to it is a growth thing. And it's knowing that, hey, you know what? Your business isn't going to die if you have to stand up for yourself, because in your heart that you did what was right. And it's, your morals and characters. And if that person wants to say something negative, that's on them. And a lot of times the people that would say something negative, people around them already know how those people are. So they're going to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. They already have a reputation themselves of following.
Exactly. Yeah. If they already have a reputation of somebody that's like into drama and bullshit and, spreading rumors and stuff.
Yeah. So I had a question that's a little, not off topic, but a little bit more on the professional development side. I was listening to one of your podcasts and I heard you talk about that you don't like TV. Like you can go without it to the point where you're scared to try to turn the TV off because you're afraid like you don't know how to work the technology, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
I hate technology.
so my question around that is, do you feel like growing up around that? Because I'm not going to lie, like, I think in the past couple of weeks or during quarantine, like I binged a bunch of shows, but I consider myself really big into professional development. Do you think, how much do you think like binging TV or social media or stuff like that takes away from people's ability to better themselves professionally or maybe work on their business?
Well, I think there's a time and a place for like binging TV shows. I can't say I've never not done that, but the thing is like, I grew up on a farm. We didn't have cable TV. We didn't have satellite, nothing. We had like 5 basic channels and that was it. So like TV's never been like something I love anyway though. So like I would rather just like read or work. Like work is a hobby for me. But as far as social media, I think social media is the worst because people just like mindlessly scroll. They don't even know why they're on there. They're not like, I always say post with a purpose. Like a lot of people get mad because they're not having this great engagement. But what happens is they're literally posting like, got this or went to this restaurant, ate this food, it was good. Yeah. So like those are like such flat posts. There's no purpose. There's no call to action there. There's no like passionate. There's like, that's very something that you would just scroll past. Well, instead of posting, like wait till you have something valuable to say before you post it, because that's what's going to be of more value to your followers, supporters, all of that. People get sucked into the social media world of just the mindless scrolling or just trying to compete with people. They can't focus on their own shit because they're too worried about what everybody else is doing, when a lot of the people out there are fake and they're renting stuff to take pictures in front of. And like I saw something the other day, like now, like Instagram influencers can rent a studio that looks like it's built like a private jet so they can sit and take pictures in it.
That's ridiculous.
You know what I mean?
That.
But what's sad is like if you're young and you don't have the right like mindset or maturity to realize like this is bought, you're thinking that you're failing.
That's what's wrong with the world right now.
Like a lot of people, they don't even want to try because they're afraid of failure. You know, it's like they get tired of like waiting, like WAIT, like waiting for the right moment. Then they finally jump in and they're end up waiting in like a pool of water because of complaints and of bullshit and of comparison. They don't ever actually get out and like take the steps because they just like make one little step and they get scared and they just stand there. You know, so social media is, I think the more you can engage with your followers and supporters, but then also make sure you realize you're not actually growing from that. You're reading content, consuming it, things like that. But like I spend 58 minutes a day is what my little like weekly time thing is on social media. And that's it. The rest of it, I just am working or reading or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So it's that fine line of like using it for good, but then not sitting there mindlessly scrolling, not trying to just continuously get that shot of dopamine,
That's
which is actually taking you away from your day.
It's realizing what are people liking, you know, like think about the girls posting like ass pictures, you know what I mean? Like the people aren't liking you or what you have to value. They're like, they're just liking your ass. You know what I'm saying? So like that's,
I can relate.
But it's that constant of like,
Dan and I are married.
but you know what I'm saying though? It's like the real, like it's that pat on the back, and people crave that pat on the back so much. They keep going to more and more extremes, or now it's a competition. It seems like who has the most trauma or who's the most unhappy person or who, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a constant comparison instead of people just being the whole like authenticity. I feel like it's becoming so manufactured. People try, sorry, my dog's like hacking something up over there. I heard that.
It's all good.
But if you like, people try to force it too much instead of just like, let me provide some good value, interact with people and then go away. They're just not, it's just become like social media is just,
I also feel like
good sides.
I also feel like there's a lot of people that will take in, especially in the professional development space, they'll take in all this content. They're like success zombies where they just like want to read it. They want to post about it, but then they don't go do shit about it. You know, like, like you can take something in, but you have to go execute it at some point. And a lot of people just talk about it.
Because then you can't read something that's just going to magically happen. Or they use like visualization and manifestation, thinking if I just sit here and think about it, it's going to happen. Like, you're missing some pieces of the puzzle there. It's like it's taking that action, and that's a big thing too. Is like the manifesting and visualizations. Like people that actively do that, like Andy is like he's crazy with his visualization and manifestation, where he has to be very cautious of what he thinks about because it almost happens like almost immediately because he's got like such a fine-tuned machine with it. It's like wild. But people don't understand how to do that. You know what I mean? It takes years and years to like really think about that. And I just think social media just gives a lot of people, it's selling discounted hope, which we all know that's something you never want because it's not good.
Absolutely. And we talk about that. We talk about visualization and manifestation, and we're huge believers in the law of attraction, but we actually did a podcast on the law of attraction. It's like the thing that people miss most is the action, right? Because you can visualize, you can kind of, you can wish, you can think, you can put a vision board, grab a magazine, do whatever. But at the end of the day, if you don't got a plan of action and you're not executing, nothing's gonna fucking come.
And that's
I mean, if you're trying to get into like you want to live in this like a big house and drive a nice car and stuff, but yet you're working in a minimum wage job and you're not even trying to better yourself to get out of a minimum wage job, there's like a disconnect of like it's not just going to magically happen for you. There has to be something in between there you have to build a bridge between that, to make it happen.
And that's for me, recently I really started getting into reading books, self-help, personal development. And I refuse to read any book that doesn't have an application to it. Because to me, it's just a story.
Same.
It doesn't provide anything to me. It's just taking in content that is more or less meaningless at the end of the day. Yeah. So to circle back a little bit to being a woman in business, I think Dan's got something that's pretty solid that I think he needs to take the time to ask, and he's the quiet one out of the group that always gets nervous and public speaking.
I just don't want to fuck it up.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure he gets his question in. It's a solid one, and we do know this. No, you ask it.
You put me on the spot.
Yeah,
we have like 5 questions here.
Actually, by the way, Dan's never this nervous.
Yeah,
Dan.
It's okay. It's only in a computer. I can't,
Yeah,
I can't
I know,
like punch you or anything.
So, all right, I'll just dive in, and I think this is the question that Brad's talking
You
about.
were building this up. I'm like,
You should be so nervous.
I actually don't even know if this is the right question that Brad's talking about.
It is.
But so, and to circle back, like Brad said, so as a female, how do you break away from some of the external pressures that you might feel being a female from family or friends? Like, I know a lot of females, and I've heard my aunts and my mom even say this, like, when are the grandkids, right? Or when are you going to get married? But they have their own dreams and they have their own goals and they have all these things, right? And so what advice would you give those people to sticking to their path versus all those external pressures, especially when they're as close as family?
Great question.
No, don't be nervous about that. That was the question, because I get that a lot. Actually, give a pat on the back. No, because people ask that a lot because, whenever Andy and I first got married, they're like, okay, when are you guys going to have kids? Or like people always ask, and I would just say, well, whenever we want, and people always want to know, like have a part of it, like to know that they had like the heads up. But we really don't get that as much anymore because we've been together for about 12 years now. We've been married like 8 years. But we're both so career driven and we love our nieces and nephews and we're with them a lot. And it's just something that, we've never like been in a rush, to have children. And we're not like, we love kids and everything like that, but we don't fall to those pressures because we have to know like what's right for us, because Andy has thousands of, employees around the country. And like, he has to be able to serve them as well. And how would be able to do this, and it's something where, we were like, well, maybe, if it happens one day, and it doesn't happen. So we're like, okay, this is like God's way of saying like, okay, this is what you guys are meant to do. You're meant to have a purpose with all these other people. These people are, who you're supposed to help raise and develop and shape. And that was just something we're like, okay, we just like embraced it. It's like the answer that you need whenever, we find out like, hey, you know what? You guys aren't supposed to have kids. Cool. Let's go. And then now it's like, this is so bad, but people ask like, well, we can't. And they're like, oh, and they get like super embarrassed, it's like, but it's not really their business anyway, but it's not like we're like heartbroken, but you know what I mean? It's never like that. We weren't super maternal people, or I guess you could say, but you don't have to follow those pressures because everything is right for everybody else. You know what I mean? They're going to tell you what's right for you as far as like what kind of car to buy, what neighborhood to live in, what house to, and, you need to have this, 2.5 kids and that's going to be happiness. Well, how do you know that though? Because if you're sacrificing your career that you are so passionate about, that you love, like I love to work. And to be honest, like I've told a few people this before, it's like, if I had kids, I don't know what I would do because I would have to give up my career, which I absolutely love. Because like to me, it's like a whole competition of beating myself from the day before. And like I thrive off of that and I need that. And I don't know like how I would make that work. I know they always say like you always would and stuff, but I feel like a lot of women that want to have kids, it's more of like they're worried about the balance. They're worried about losing themselves. They don't want to be such and such as mom. They want to be this career woman. But you can't have both. I know dozens of women that have done that and they're crazy successful in it because they never let themselves lose that piece of themselves. They want to have a family and be that person as well. But also because, they want to be able to serve themselves and their family. You have to realize like you're able to put yourself out there and run your business and do your shit because you're working to provide for your family that those people are a part of.
Yeah.
Right.
So I feel like that's the important factor to remember in that is like you're serving your family by you being a hard worker.
Yeah. And like you said, there's right for them and then there's right for you. And at the end of the day, if you or anybody else is happy and you know that you're working towards your purpose and you're fulfilled, then who the fuck's to say what's right or wrong, right?
I know. And that's the thing is like, who does say what's right or wrong? Because everybody wants you to fall suit of like what they're, the lines that they're in and stuff like that. But it's like, we are like 10,000% happy with our lives. You know what I mean? We got our dogs, we pick up and go when we want. It's just, we're like, oh, let's start another company. Let's do this. And, we really love to live that way. Yeah. And I know it's not for everybody. And some people look at us like, we're like, you guys are crazy workaholics. But for us, it's just natural.
And I find that super interesting. Me and Dan, we're both married. We both have kids. And we're lucky enough that our wives do let us work way too much and do stuff like this for fun and hopefully turn this into some sort of business. But when I hear you talk about that, I've mentioned on our podcast before that money's awesome. I want to be super rich. I want to be super successsul. But what I've always said of what I want to leave behind is a legacy. And that's like what I'm hearing from you there is, you could have children, you could have a great life, give them everything they need, but you're providing for thousands of people, like you're saying. And I think that's just super cool. And that's something that I would love to aspire to get to at some point, is having that legacy. But it is, like you said, it's a thin line between those people who they don't always have that woman behind them that is supporting them. And I feel like on the flip side, for a man to give that for his wife, and it seems like you do have that there. But what do you say for women that don't have that connection at home of, their spouse that is pushing them to do those things? Because I feel like there's a lot of times a lot of people feel like they can't do something because somebody says you can't do this. So, I mean, obviously the three, Matt's a single guy here, but of all the people here, we have a good connection with our spouse that is pushing us to succeed. What would you say to a woman that doesn't have that connection yet?
Man, it's so hard. So it depends on, and it depends on where they're at though. Is it somebody just you're dating? You know what I mean? Then like, you don't want them in your life if they're not going to be supportive of you, because here's the thing. This is always just like burned my ass about this, because I'm like getting on the edge of my seat, like ready. No,
she's ready.
No, because I've been in relationships in the past when I had my first business that was not supportive whatsoever, hated how much I worked, complained how much I worked. And I said, fine, I'm selling the business then. I put it up for sale. I sold my business, the building and the property that I had in 3 hours after I was like,
should have priced it higher.
Ready for that. Yeah. And then guess what happens? No shit. But then guess what happens? You get bitter, you get resentful, you get hateful towards those people, because that stemmed from them. And why would you not want to support someone that's going to be contributing to a household that you are a part of?
Yeah,
you're an active part of that. So, and I don't know if it's this insecurity of like, oh, you're going to go out and do your own thing and then you're going to leave me. Well, if you're going to stifle them, guess what? They're leaving your ass before anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Boom.
It just burns me up so much to hear either men or women, I don't care what gender you are, that the other one isn't supporting the other one, because they're bettering themselves, which is going to be a better situation for you in all levels, because the person's going to be happier. They're going to feel more fulfilled. They're fulfilled. They're going to have a purpose. It's going to help contribute to your household income, or in, other ways within the household. If there's someone that maybe they're not making money, but yet they're doing something that they love, they're going to be in a better mood, no matter, if they're not contributing financially, whatever. But don't you want those people happy that you say that you quote love?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I push my wife to start a business. I know you do.
I just it's just a hot topic, because I get so saddened when I hear these people say like, I really want to do this, but my husband's worried that if I lose weight that I'll get hot and then I'll leave him. Like, what? Like it's, or like have a business or whatever. It's just wild.
I mean, I push my wife to start a business. I feel like every other day. It might be the stupidest thing in the world, but I think that's super important for people to have in them. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Well, people want that sense of worth, you know what I mean? Especially if your wives have children, like, they want to have their own thing, they want to be able to be like, to feel like they have a sense of purpose and they're giving something besides just, taking care of the children and stuff and managing the household and stuff, So for me, that's what my business are to me. Cause like, I know it's our dogs, but they are like our babies. It's like taking care of them and taking care of the house and you know what I mean? Like doing construction jobs and stuff like that. If there's a lot of stuff going on, it's like, for me, this is like my thing,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think everybody needs that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think so. Yeah, I definitely think so.
So I know we just have a couple more minutes left with you. So we're going to wrap this up with a couple of questions. One of the questions I have, we're obviously a professional development podcast. We're all about bettering ourselves, bettering our listeners, and just any way that we can get better, right? Mm-hmm. So if you could pick one professional development tool that you've had, and when I say tool, book, podcast, seminar, class, whatever it is, if you could just pick one to like restart your career, or one for somebody that's out there listening that is aspiring to start their life in the entrepreneurship or success, what would that be?
Man, I think besides, Andy's podcast, that's always a good place to start with the MSCO project.
Who is this Andy
we
guy?
We don't know
referencing someone named Andy? Is that? Should we know who that is?
Yes. I think the book is called Rework. I forget the author right now, but it's great for anyone that's come out of either the corporate world or you're starting a business. And Rework is something that I actually had my team with Paper and Planco. They have like assigned reading. I buy them their books and they have to read these books within 6 weeks. And then we talk about it. And then we get another book and we talk about each thing every week. And so everyone's reading. I was having them read Rework because some people that, like I said, my sister came out of the law community, and then just kind of getting everybody, like we're on like level 1. And what Rework is, it's saying like, hey, not everything has to be immediate. It's like stripping down all the bullshit you learned in corporate world and, things that are necessary and all this stuff. It's getting down to like the nitty gritty. It's written by the guys that, oh my gosh, why am I blanking out on it?
This is
I
so
cannot think of it
Dan.
right now. Gosh darn it.
What?
Not ever knowing
I
the
can
author.
see it. I can see it.
I
this
never
is
know the
Dan,
author.
Dan comes in with a
Just
quote.
bleep it all out. I'm
have
usually
a
very
quote,
good at it,
but I
it's-
won't know who
it's
it
two
is.
authors. Yeah, it's two authors.
We'll Google
But
it.
anyway, yeah. So Rework is a really good resource for people because it helps kind of unbrainwash you from the corporate world
Right.
to start realizing what you need to actually do to be like productive and take active steps.
Jason Fried and David Hannenmeyer
That's it.
Hansen. Okay.
Yep,
Cool.
that's it.
And
It's a really good book and it's an easy read. I recommend that for everybody. And then also, if you already are in business, Leadership by John Maxwell is a killer book. It's so good. I've read that one
I've
three
heard
or
of that
four
one.
times.
Okay.
It's great.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, that's good for us. And then I think Dan had one more question that he wanted to ask.
Well, first of all, where can everybody find you?
Yes.
Give us all the hot links, social media.
Instagram's honestly the easiest. I have everything linked in my bio there. It's just Emily Frisella on Instagram. Then you can find anything else there in my bio.
Okay, cool.
Is that the shortest one you've read?
What's that?
Go here.
It's the easiest. It's what everybody should have it on there, right? So then you don't have to write down every website.
Because everybody listens. Most people podcast while they're listening to podcasts while they're in their car. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
So Dan.
Okay. What's this question?
Okay, here we go.
I feel like you're the one that gets the bad awkward questions or something with the lead up or something.
Dan's just the awkward
This
guy.
is what they do. This is what they do.
I know. It's like, oh, Dan, we got your script written. Here you go.
Yeah, here it is.
All right. So now we know that they came up with this question. So that's good. All right. So you have 2 cookbooks, right?
Yes.
And so all those recipes, you have to have some favorites, some least favorites. So fuck one, kill one, marry one.
Oh my gosh.
Out of all the recipes, we want to know the
Recipe?
meals.
That's like American Pie shit or something.
American
There it
Pie.
is.
Hey,
Okay.
that's what I said.
Oh. No.
No, you know what? It's funny because people post recipes and like, oh, that's my favorite. And I'm like, wait, they're all fucking my favorites. I wrote the book.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So, I guess if you had to
Okay,
pick top 3, I guess what would they be?
Top 3 would be my spring rolls from the Saints Plate. It would be my lasagna from the Sinner's Dinner. And then it would be, let's see here,
Hold on, let me write this.
my
shit down.
protein chocolate chip cookies from this Fresh Farmhouse Kitchen.
That's
The one
going to be
from
you,
each-
Dan, on the keto.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan's about to start keto here soon.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, I've done it a couple times, so I'm gonna cycle in and out. I'm gonna try
Yeah.
to do like 3 weeks on, 1 week off. I can't sustain it forever.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
Yeah. But cool. Again,
Good luck
I think
with
we're over our time a little bit, Emily. We just want to say thank you again
Yeah,
for
thank you
having
so
us
much.
on.
Thanks for
We
having
really
me, guys.
appreciate it.
We'll obviously
It was
keep
nice to meet
following
you
you.
guys.
Hopefully, we can see you at some point in person. And yeah, thanks again for coming on.
Yes. No, thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thanks.
Good to chat with you guys. All right. Thanks, guys.
See ya.